understanding what options are available. So my name, as Michael said, is Kathleen Hayes. I am a special needs planning attorney. My practice is located in Glastonbury, Connecticut. It's the law office of Kathleen D. Hayes. And I really come to this world with a personal passion. I went to law school wanting to work with individuals with disabilities. I myself have an uncle with an intellectual disability. So this work for me truly is a convergence of personal passion with professional pursuit. So within my work, I actually started off in special education law, representing parents and individuals with disabilities and their needs within the school system. And then I transitioned into special needs planning in terms of guiding families and individuals with what does a good life look like, essentially building out what that life means for them, and then putting the right legal tools and supports in place to be able to have that good life and have it continue along all seasons of life, essentially. So with that being said, we have the very important topic today of supported decision making. So I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully this works in the same way. It just did. Let's see, screen 2. All right. Now, do you see just one slide? Okay, perfect.
You're good, Kathleen. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. All right, so, and as Michael said, please feel free to ask questions. This is a presentation for you. This is specifically tailored to individuals with disabilities who may or may not want to pursue supported decision making. And the idea here today is to give you an idea as to exactly what is supported decision making, and if it's a tool that's right for you, how to evaluate, and then how to implement that. So supported decision making, essentially, it's a fancy way of saying help with life choices. So let's see here. Okay, perfect. So the overview of the presentation is supported decision making. We're going to start with what your legal rights are in making decisions. Then we'll talk about, just in general, how are decisions made from a basic human level? How do we operate and make decisions in our lives? Then we're going to talk about the details of, okay, based on that, what is supported decision making? And then is it right for you, and how to evaluate that? All right, so I always like to start with the magic number of 18. So 18 is this number that has legal meaning to it. So that basically means that up until the age of 18, you're a child in the eyes of the law. So you're a minor. And what that means is that your parents, as your legal guardians, have the right to make any and all decisions for you. Once you turn 18, you then have all of the rights to make decisions yourself. So you see here in this visual, it says people who are 18 and older are legal adults and can now make their own decisions. The graphics here, you see this graduation cap. That means you can make your own educational decisions. The heart, you can make your own medical decisions. The money, you can make financial decisions for yourself. So you have the right to make any and all decisions for yourself once you turn 18. There's essentially a wall between you and your parents in their ability to make decisions for you. So your parents can no longer make decisions for you when you turn 18, unless you want or need their support. And that's where we get into talking about supported decision making. So the default, the main rule is that you're in the driver's seat. You're in control of decisions once you're 18, unless you seek or need support of other individuals to continue to help you in making various decisions. So let's talk about your legal rights to make decisions. So you have the right to make decisions about your life. It seems like a pretty obvious statement, but unfortunately, It's not an obvious statement for many individuals that have a loved one with a disability in their life. I think that in many cases, there is the feeling of other people of the need to protect or make decisions for somebody, typically out of a place of love, but the underlying sentiment is still the same, which is that you have the right to make decisions about your own life, regardless of whether or not anyone has a disability. Everyone has the right to make choices and to direct their own path. And this is what's known as self-determination. Again, that's just a fancy way of saying that you're in the driver's seat of your own life. That means that you have the freedom to choose where you live and who you live with, choose who you want to be around, who are your friends, who are the people that are providing supports if you need them, who are the people that are in your life on a day-to-day basis, choosing any services or supports you might want or need, or deciding and choosing not to receive services and supports that you don't want or need, choosing your job where you work, managing your own money, and making decisions about your own health. So you have the right to make all of these decisions once you're 18 and the law says you're an adult, go ahead. You must always be treated with dignity and respect, not should, must. People must always respect who you are and what your thoughts, feelings, beliefs, goals, and dreams are. They should always be respected and heard so that other people are not imposing what they believe is right for your life, but rather you're sharing your feelings about what's right for your life, and that other people respect and hear you and help to guide you in carrying out your own vision. So how are decisions made? This is just in general, when life choices come up, what do we do to make decisions? So first, we have this graphic, which is you in the middle. And surrounding you are all of the various topics in life where choices might need to be made. Certainly, this is just a small representation of the types of choices that might come up. Naturally, there is a whole world of choices that come up every moment of every day. But these are the big ones. So health, you can or may need to make medical decisions for yourself. Going to the right in the circle, decisions about where you live, where you call home, decisions about school. If you're receiving any types of special education services, that means that you have the right and will need to make decisions about what your educational plan looks like, what your transition plan looks like, what life looks like after school. You have the right to make decisions about any jobs, where you work, how much money you make, what type of job you want, where you want that job to be. You have the right to manage and make decisions about money, what money you earn, what money you spend. You have the right to make decisions about who your friends are, about your own safety, about advocacy for yourself, legal decisions that might need to be made, including any type of legal documents that you might want to have to help support you as an individual and affirm your right to make decisions, and social decisions, how you interact with in the community, how you access the community with transportation, and who your community and who your network is. These are all different choices that everybody is faced with each and every day. So when we talk about how we make decisions, we don't necessarily make decisions in a vacuum, which means that we don't necessarily just sit in our own room, in our own world, and make all these decisions about our health and where we live in school all by ourselves. So you see surrounding that blue circle is an orange circle. These are examples of people or organizations that we might reach out to and rely on for guidance in making decisions. So for example, with a medical decision, most people don't have a medical degree. So when you're faced with options of, do I want to take this medication or not? Do I need this surgery or not? You can consult with your doctor or a nurse or a medical professional to help you make that decision. Where do you want to live? Well, maybe your family has some good guidance there. Maybe your family will help to provide you with a place to live, or help guide you in finding a place to live. You can rely on neighbors. You can rely on teachers. For employment, maybe you have a job coach. You can rely on other professionals. So for money, a lot of people use financial advisors or accountants or people that will help them to budget. For safety, maybe you're relying on the police to help guide you in safety decisions. For advocacy, maybe you're looking to organizations like CPAC to be able to guide you in making the right decisions to advocate for yourself. For legal decisions, maybe you're reaching out to a lawyer or an advocate. For social decisions, maybe you're reaching out to therapists or friends. And there's more, there's certainly a litany more, and I'm sure you yourselves can think of examples of in your own life, whether or not there's more bubbles that exist for you in terms of who you rely on to help you to make various life decisions. So you can make decisions by yourself. You don't need to rely upon these orange bubbles if you don't need to. So you might perfectly well know what you want and how to achieve what you want without the need to access or ask for help from these people or groups in the orange circles here. Or you can make decisions with the help from people you trust. So you can think about what decisions need to be made, what decisions are in front of you on a daily basis, and think about who are those people or those organizations that can help to guide you in making a choice. So this brings us to what is supported decision-making. Supported decision-making is just a fancy way of saying that you can ask people to help you to make your own life choices. And this is really important because there is sometimes a misunderstanding that needing help means that you can't do it. And that's not true. That's exactly what supported decision-making is fighting against. It's saying, just because you need help doesn't mean you can't make decisions. People need to access advice and professional support from other people all the time. Otherwise, we wouldn't exist in these communities. We would all just go off and find our own little corner of the world and live by ourselves. But that's not how we work. As people, we need each other. We are integrated. We all have different strengths. We all have different things that we bring to the table. And so when we're presented with something that comes up that we're not familiar with, we can ask for help. And then when we get that help and we get that guidance, we can then use it to make our own decision. So asking for help does not mean that you cannot make your own decisions. So there's two main ways that you can ask for help with decisions when we're talking about what is supported decision making. So the first is just ask. So as you're living your life and different questions or choices come up, you might just know who to call. You might just say, oh, anytime this question or this issue has come up for me, I always talk to my mom and she always knows what advice to give me. And I always feel like I know what my path is after I ask for her advice. And it can be any type of issue or question or choice that needs to be made, big or small. Just ask. The other way to ask for help with a decision is by writing it down. So this is what's known as a supported decision-making agreement. So a supported decision-making agreement is just writing down the types of choices that you would like help with. So you need to think in advance, instead of just kind of going about your life and asking for help as issues come up. When you have a written agreement for supported decision-making, what you're doing is you're sitting down and saying, I know I'm going to need help making decisions about where I live. I know I'm going to need help finding the right job for me. I know I'm going to need help choosing the right friends. I know I'm going to need help managing money. And as I listed all those things, you might have said, no, I don't, no, I don't, no, I don't, and that's perfectly fine. Supported decision-making is tailored to each person. So you think about where you might need help and you write those areas down. Then you ask trusted people in your life to agree in advance and put something in writing saying, if you come to me and you ask me for help, I will help you. That's all a written supported decision-making agreement is. It's just a way of putting down on paper, if certain questions come up and I need to make these choices, these are the people that I want to ask for help in those moments. And those people know I'm going to come to them and they have agreed and will be there to help me. It's a good thing to have written down, and you can even show it to other people as your supporters are helping you. You can show them that agreement to say, look, this is what we're doing here, and I'm asking this person to help me. What are the different things that your supporters or your trusted people can do to help you? Well, one is they can help you gather information. So for a medical decision, for example, they might go and sit with you and speak and ask questions. Maybe they know questions to ask that you wouldn't think to ask because you haven't dealt with this situation before. So they can help ask questions and gather more information that will help you to make a decision. They can break down information and explain it to you in a way that you understand. So your trusted support person might know the best way that you communicate. Some people communicate really well verbally. Some people are visual, and it's really helpful for them to see something depicted in a picture form. So your supporter is going to help you to receive that information in a way that makes sense for you. They can help you to look at the pros and cons of a decision, to say, well, you know, if you take this medication, here are all the good things that might happen, and here are all of the potential side effects. So let's think about the pros and the cons, and that can then help you to reach a decision. They can help you to communicate your decisions to other people. So you might have no problem coming to that choice and the decision in a certain scenario, but you might need assistance in expressing that to other people, and your supporter can do that and find out the ways that you best communicate and help that message to come across clearly from you. They can help you to carry out a decision, to help you identify the steps that you would need to take to see something through. So for example, housing, if you want to go find an apartment to rent, they might help you to contact a realtor who can then show you different apartments. They might help you to look at your budget to figure out and understand what you can afford. And then maybe they'll help you to look at any rent or lease agreement to make sure that you understand it before you sign it. So those are all different ways that a supporter can help you in that decision in carrying out your choice to live independently. Your supporter can help you in any way that would benefit you. So again, you're calling the shots, you're asking the questions, and your supporter is there to be able to meet your needs and help you to make a decision. Well, what can your supporter not do? Really importantly, they can't make a decision for you. So this is distinct from what you might be familiar with, which is guardianship or conservatorship. Those are different ways to make legal decisions where a court is involved and has appointed somebody else to make a decision on your behalf, a decision for you. So if someone has a guardian or someone has a conservator, that person's role is to talk to you about what your wishes are, but in the end, at the end of the day, that guardian or that conservator makes the choice. They make the decision. With a supported decision-making agreement, that's not the case. With the supported decision-making agreement, you stay in the driver's seat. You make your decisions. You're just getting some support and some help and guidance in making that decision. So is supported decision-making right for you? How do you best decide? Well, this is a really helpful tool. And in Connecticut, we actually have what's known as the Connecticut Supported Decision-Making Coalition. That is a group of people that are dedicated to promoting education about supported decision-making and to guiding individuals and their families so that supported decision-making becomes really well known and really widely used. Because going back to the beginning of the presentation, you have the right to make decisions about your own life. So what we really need to do better in this state is to make sure that we're honoring that, and that that's our starting point in terms of figuring out what decision-making tools are the best to implement. So that means that when someone turns 18, there isn't a rush to say, this person needs a guardian or a conservator because they have a disability. No, you can have a disability and still make your own decisions, and you might be able to do that yourself, or you might need support in doing that. And as we talked about before, if you need support to make a decision, it doesn't mean you can't make one. So the coalition in Connecticut has a lot of really helpful tools. They have a supported decision-making guide, and they're coming out with a series of handbooks for individuals with disabilities, family members, lawyers, courts, educators, to really spread the word wide about what supported decision-making is. This slide right here is pulled into the Connecticut Coalition's guide. So the coalition has a guidebook that you can reference, and I can certainly share it with Lois and Michael if you don't have a copy now, to help you review it to decide whether supported decision-making is right for you. And this is one tool that you can use. So you see there's 3 columns. I can do this alone, I can do this with support, or I need someone else to do this for me. This is a self-reflection worksheet, essentially. So you look at this paper and you read or have someone support you in going through this paper to think about all of these different life choices. These are kind of like all of those different bubbles that you saw in the earlier slide of the different choices that might come up. So help communicating, help with personal care. For example, choosing what I wear. Can I do that alone? Do I need help doing that? Or do you need someone else to choose what you wear? You go through this worksheet and check off where you fall. Check off those boxes if you can do it alone and you don't need to ask anyone for help. Check off the boxes where you can do things, but you might need help doing them. And then check off the boxes where you might need somebody else to fully step in for you. Once you go through that and you identify the areas where you need support, that becomes your guide to how to use supported decision-making. So all of the areas where you identify a support need, you can simply just ask for support when those questions come up, Or you can write it down, and you can write down all of those areas where you anticipate you would need help and have trusted people sign that agreement saying, yes, we will help you if these issues come up. And this is just a continuation of that worksheet that, again, I can share with you so that you have it as a resource as you want to sit down and look through whether supported decision-making is something that you would benefit from. You can also visit Connecticut SILC, so the State Independent Living Council, for more information. Connecticut SILC is a really key player in the supported decision-making world in Connecticut, and they are putting on their website all of these different resources that I had mentioned before, including the different supported decision-making guides, so that you can better understand in even more detail what supported decision-making is and how to tailor it and make it right for you. You can also reach out to me as a resource if needed. I'm always happy to help individuals in their supported decision-making journeys as well. So that is my presentation. I thank you, and I would certainly open up to questions if anybody has anything that they would like to ask.
Kathleen, thank you so much. And again, I echo what Kathleen just said. I fully respect if any of our lovely audience would like to just type anything in the chat for questions. Okay, Jonathan, thank you. I see. In what ways is supported decision-making legally supported in Connecticut?
That's a great question. So there's two answers to that. The first is that when we look at our Connecticut laws, we don't have a Connecticut law that says supported decision-making is relying on other people for support, and this is how it works and what it looks like, and here's a sample form. We don't have that today. We, as part of the coalition, are working toward having laws in place in the near future, within the next few years, year to few years, depending on what happens with the legislative sessions. So that is an important goal, to put this in the laws to basically recognize the legal impact of this document. That being said, supported decision-making, I think, is required under the federal law. It's part of the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's part of the IDEA, all the spirit. It doesn't directly state these things, but it's part of the spirit of these laws, which basically is that individuals need to be served with the least restrictive measures. They need to be served in the least restrictive environment with the least restrictive tools in place. And that's recognized in our guardianship and our conservatorship laws. So under those laws, if somebody has a guardian or a conservator that's being appointed for them, the court needs to find that that's the least restrictive way to help that person make decisions. Which means if there is a lesser restrictive alternative that will work for the individual, then guardianship or conservatorship is not the right tool for that person and should not be put in place. So even though we don't have a law on the books that says this is what supported decision-making is and this is how it works, everybody, supported decision-making is how we as people operate. We ask other people for help, and asking somebody else for help doesn't make you incapable of making a decision. So I would argue, I think without controversy, that supported decision-making is the law. You have to, as a court, recognize that if someone can make a decision, even if they need help, that doesn't mean that they're incapable, such that they need somebody else to legally take that person's rights away and make a decision for them.
Thank you, Kathleen. And I have a question from Lois. So basically, do you have any information on how to determine who a trusted person might be, whether they be a paid support person like a teacher or a job coach or someone who might be non-paid? Is there any template to determine who may have their best interest in mind?
That's a good question. I think that in general, my experience with supported decision making has been that it's always an uncompensated role. I just think that it's part of how we operate as people. So I have not heard of somebody being paid to support somebody else in making decisions, though I suppose it's not unheard of or impossible that that would be the case. But I think what's really essential is that the individual simply identify their network, their people whom they trust. And they might start with their most trusted people. Maybe it's your parents, maybe it's siblings or friends or a therapist, and that person can often have good suggestions as to, once you start identifying what other areas are where you need supports, maybe thinking of other people that might be willing to kind of join your team. I think supported decision making is a great way to have a team and to feel like you have a network of people around you, even if that's the case already. When you really sit down and think about it, I think that you can be surprised at how many people are actually in your corner when you really stop and look at it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I actually have a question, Kathleen. I was, nodding my head as you were talking, because I think, in my own life, I'm a brain injury survivor and in someone lived experience with mental health disabilities. So I think looking back on my own life, my own transition, what you are sharing about support decision making, I've seen those elements played out in my life. And I know that's a huge part of my success, is having those trusted professionals and family members and friends ask me, what do you want? And I go, what are you willing to do? And having that room and space to fail or change my mind. And so I was like nodding my head, and even what you said earlier, how universal it really is for everyone, right? I was like kind of laughing inside my head. I'm like, when you were talking about the template, like what can I do on my own or with support or need someone totally, I'm thinking, well, I can cook and clean and organize and write and draw all on my own and like be great at that. But if you ask me to like repair my car, I need to
Right.
there's this disconnect from when we think about it in this own little bubble. So I appreciated your breakdown with that. My one question though is, in your experience and knowledge, what do you think has been a successful element for putting this into practice? And maybe are you willing to share maybe some common barriers or what often gets in the way of implementing this, versus like in reality, like whether it's, intense emotions or disagreements? I would appreciate that information. And I thank all of our audience for, live here and for the recording.
That's a really great question, and I appreciate your background and where you're coming from, because we all come to supported decision making from very different walks of life and perspectives. And I think that the key really is perspective, and it is philosophy in terms of what makes supported decision making work and what makes it not work. You mentioned, Michael, that in your own journey that you had people around you that believed in you and your autonomy and your ability to make decisions despite having a brain injury. And I think that is the critical piece, that supported decision making works when people are aware of it and that they value it and that they realize that this is not only the right thing to do, but what the law really requires, which is giving people the greatest level of autonomy that they need and deserve. The barriers to supported decision-making being successful are prejudice, are lack of awareness or ignorance as to the fact that somebody that needs help making a decision is not incapable. I think history is working against people, maybe complacency, meaning that there have been for so long when we think about decision-making for people with disabilities, it's, okay, you need a guardian, okay, you need a conservator, and that's a default, and that's just a way of thinking. So what we're trying to do, especially as the coalition, is to rewrite the narrative and to spread education and to say, attorneys, when you talk to your clients, when you talk to parents that come in and ask you and say, my son or daughter needs guardianship or conservatorship, can you help me? That you need to redirect the conversation. And you need to say, well, the law requires that we look at the least restrictive options first. And let me tell you about them and let's explore them. It's educating judges in the probate courts to say, just because someone needs help making a decision doesn't mean that they are incapable, and that you as judges need to consider supported decision making before you grant a request for conservatorship or guardianship. Within schools, you need to tell families that they have options about decision making instead of just assuming that guardianship or conservatorship is right for people. So the success of supported decision making is education and awareness. And I think that we're taking good steps and good strides toward that. And I think the legislative piece of it is part of it. Putting a law in place that recognizes supported decision making is basically saying, this is in front of you. You have to consider this, you have to do it, so that it is at the forefront of the conversation and doesn't fall away in people's minds into the background as time goes on.
Thank you so much for your response, Kathleen. I think it's a good reminder we're all in this together as a community, as humans, as residents of our state, and just ways we can get involved and contribute and use our strengths and gifts and time and talent, or even just that basic element of kindness and understanding. So I appreciate that. I know we are about 16 minutes out from top of the hour. So if there's any other questions from the audience, you are free to unmute or get on video. But again, if your preference is to pop anything in the chat, that's totally fine as well. And I do have to quickly just mention, we really appreciate your attendance today. I do have a quick poll. So before you hop off today, I'll just launch a quick virtual poll at the end of our session. I can do that in a moment as well. It'll just literally take 15 seconds of your time. That just really helps us in terms of our funding and providing future opportunities. So we really appreciate you taking the time to do that. All right, and I just launched the poll. If you can't see that, please let me know, and that'll just be really quick. Thanks so much. I'll give it just 10 more seconds, and then we can continue on.
And I'll just mention, Michael, that this presentation has had to do fully and exclusively really with supported decision making. But there are other options that can also be used together with supported decision making. So those other tools would be what's known as a power of attorney document, which is a legal document regarding financial decision making and legal decisions, as well as a healthcare directive, which is specific to medical decisions. So those power of attorney and healthcare directives are more limited in scope in terms of the types of decisions that we're talking about. Supported decision making, as we've talked about, can kind of be anything and everything. So a power of attorney and a healthcare directive aren't instead of a supported decision making agreement. They would be in addition to them. And those documents are important as well because there are laws in place that recognize right now those documents, so that can be helpful, especially as we need to spread the word and educate about supported decision making. But I just wanted to mention that those are other tools that still allow someone with a disability to make their own decisions while having supported people in place, including those recognized under the laws that exist today, as these various choices come up.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. I'm just going to relaunch the poll. Although so it's saying it'll clear existing polling results. Jonathan, what I may work better without erasing our other evaluation, if you just want to pop in anything in the chat, I'm fine with that. Basically, the 3 questions are, this presentation was clear and easy to understand. I feel prepared to use this information to advocate for myself or others. And then the information I received is useful to me. I can also send you a private email if you don't want to answer that in the chat now. So I'm happy to do that anyway. I just don't want to erase our other evaluation results. So thank you for asking that, Jonathan. I appreciate that. And yeah, so any other questions for Kathleen? I know, again, we're about 10 minutes from the top of the hour. This was so helpful, Kathleen. I think, I'll have to definitely research more on ways to get involved. I think it's so important. I think, just from a sustainability perspective too, how, again, my brain keeps going back to, it's so universal, it's so easy, it's so simple, it's so like what we should be doing for everyone, right? Like I'm thinking like, even for my own parents, my siblings, like there's just such power in choice and saying and giving people that chance. And so I think, I have to be honest, like before our presentation today, I knew about supported decision making, but I didn't realize like, it just is so maybe, it's easy in the sense like it's the right thing to do. And I'm not saying it's everyone's choice, right or wrong, but just that there just seems to be such harmony whenever it can come to the table and give people that choice and just that freedom to grow and or fail or make decisions. And yes, I have a lot to think about, and I think a lot, seems like our audience really is appreciating it. And I think maybe a continued conversation, my brain's kind of circulating into like, behind the scenes or documentation and just other things we can do to keep moving this forward and expanding throughout the state and nationally.
Definitely. And actually, let me mention, let me stop my screen share. Did I stop my screen share?
You did. Yeah, you're all set.
Good. Okay, good. I just wanted to see if I could pull up. There is a date in November where the Supported Decision Making Coalition is having a summit. So let me just give you that date. And we have a national speaker coming who will be talking about supported decision making, including, I believe her name is Jenny Hatch, who is an individual with Down syndrome that is using supported decision making. Jonathan Martinez is the national speaker I mentioned, along with Jenny, that I believe helped her to end her guardianship and to create supported decision making. So it should be a really wonderful event. It is on November 9th in Rocky Hill.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. I just want to do a reminder for our audience here in the recording. This will be posted to our CPAC YouTube channel. So this will be within the next week or so uploaded. So that will be live, and we can send out the PowerPoint as Lois said. And again, I just appreciate your time, Kathleen. And again, any last questions? We do have time for, a 5 or 7 minute window. So I'll just give everyone a moment. I'll stop talking for a second to allow time for our brains to process and just make great use of your time.
Kathleen, I'm wondering, sorry, you have to let me put my video in. Anyway, I can talk without my looking at myself. I'm wondering if you have the title of the presentation on the 9th so that folks can Google it or find out how to register for it. I know that it's a registration requirement.
I do. Is that something that you can circulate after?
Sure. If we haven't already, I know CPAC has put some other things on our website. I'm not sure about November 9th. but certainly, if you want to put it, can you put it in the chat and I'll capture it and send it?
Yes, I just have to find it. I can, if I can email it to you after, I will
That would
do.
be great. And then we'll send it along to the folks, and then we'll also put it on our CPAC website. I know there is a registration requirement. That's why I'm mentioning it.
Yes, it might be on the Silk website. I'll look it up, and if I don't have it, I will get it to you.
Thank you so much.
You're
I
welcome.
really appreciate your time and your expertise. I
It's
know
my pleasure.
families and youth will really benefit from the way that you simplified the process, because sometimes things can get complicated, and you really did a great job of the visuals and the way you broke it down makes a lot of sense.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I echo what Lois said. So at this point, I want to respect everyone's time. I know, we all have such busy lives. We're at 12:50 now. We're slated till 1. This is the last call for any questions or comments, but if no one has anything else, Kathleen, again, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you so much. And I will stop the recording.